everyone. Welcome to this sixth edition of the University Series. Today we'll be talking about the future of payments, a very exciting subject because it kind of ties in well with one of our formaton challenges. So for this edition, we'll be having two exciting panelists. First, Alexandre Ross from Paytex of Canada, and second, Tony Dakash from Payments Canada. Each of these panelists will come in different sections, so we'll kind of have a different format as we're usually used to in our university series. So if you are a regular here, you might find it a bit different. First, for those who are maybe tuning in for the first time, let's tell you a bit more about FinTech Cadence, who we are. So we've been around for about 4 years, and we're a nonprofit organization whose real goal mission is really to help develop future FinTech leaders of tomorrow. How do we do this? We go through our 3 pillars. First, we create a lot of education about what FinTech is. Of course, we also are a very a collaborative organization who work hand in hand with all the other partners of this ecosystem. Might I mention a few? Maybe financial institution, regulatory bodies, startups, of course. And last but not least, we really help support entrepreneurs through our different programs and events. Talking about these different programs and events, let's mention what our programs are all about. So one of the first programs we organize every year is the certificate, which is a 7 course around the different pillars of FinTech. The course is given by industry experts, and we have 2 editions, one that's usually in English at the beginning of the year in January, which of course is already over, and a second edition, first time this year, that will be in French as of September. So if you want to know more about FinTech, this is the perfect program for you. You can look at our social media. We'll be announcing the next cohort certificates very soon. Ascension now, one of our flagship programs, probably, I don't want to say our favorite, but one of our favorite. Every year we have a cohort of about 15 startups that do the program for about 3 months. We've just finished our last cohort recently. So if you want to know what are the exciting startups of the ecosystem this year, you can watch our demo day online. So I really recommend, it was an amazing demo day. So I really recommend you guys go see that. The formaton, I won't deep dive too much on the formaton because I'll come back to it a bit later. But our formaton is our pre-incubation program, 3-week open innovation competition. So as I mentioned, we'll get back to it. And last but not least, this year we have the Ifh program, so it's Innovate Financial Health Lab. This new program is really focused on startups who are there to help the financial lives of Canadians. So the 6-month program just started recently, so if you want to know more about our 8 new startups, we've announced them recently on our social media, so you can go check them out. Now, I don't also mention that we have events throughout the years. Some exciting events you have to come and attend are, of course, the FinTech Drinks. These are networking events that we have throughout the year. Usually starts off with a little panel on an exciting subject, and then you can meet anybody from the ecosystem. So every year we have so many people coming into these events. We've adapted them to the virtual side, so even if we're in COVID, you can come to these and meet a lot of exciting people. FinTech Career Fair, of course, where we bring together financial institutions, startups, and of course, the talent of tomorrow together. Unfortunately, this has been put on hold for the COVID situation, but if everything goes as we hope they will go, we'll be back with a new edition next year. And last but not least, University Series. If you're tuning in now, maybe you already have attended a University Series, but these are events that we do throughout the year where we really focus more on creating awareness around what are the different topics of FinTech. So if you want to have a first introduction to FinTech, these are super cool events where you can actually learn new exciting subjects about FinTech. Now, I promised I'd tell you more about the formaton, and here we are. So the formaton, what is it? So the formaton is a 3-week open innovation competition where you can build your FinTech startup or work on a research project. Now, you don't necessarily have to be an expert in these topics. You can just jump in. You don't necessarily have to have an entrepreneurial topics. We are there to help you create a team and either work on a startup project or a research project. This year, we have the chance of having 3 exciting challenges that have been submitted by our partners in this ecosystem. So first challenge is a startup track, is a challenge around payments that has been launched by Payments Canada. Second challenge, more focused on cybersecurity this year, launched by Expertis. And third challenge in the research track on open banking, launched by OBIC, Open Banking Initiative Canada. Now, I mentioned it before, you don't have to be an expert in payments. You don't have to be an expert in cybersecurity or in open banking to participate, but it's a perfect occasion if you want to learn more about these topics, want to become an expert in one of these fields. Of course, who says competition also says prize. So this year, we're very excited to have $5,000 in cash prize for each of these challenges. So if you are looking for a little gig for this summer, you guys can register to the Formaton and you might actually win this $5,000 in cash prize. The competition will take place from May 26th to June 17th. So that's coming up really soon. So if I were you, I'd go directly on the website and register. So as I mentioned before, we have a payment challenge, and that's why it's super excited to have Alex and Tony today as panelists who'll be able to maybe jump in and tell us a bit more about what is this payment sector. So in first part, I'm super excited to welcome Alex, where we'll talk about more about the inefficiencies in fintech, in the payment sector, and we'll touch base on some exciting new technologies that are coming up. Second part, of course, we'll jump in really deep dive into this Payments Challenge with Tony Dakash from Payments Canada. He'll be able to tell you a bit more of all the back end that you need to know if you want to participate in the Formaton Challenge. So to start off today, we have an exciting panelist with us for this first section, whose name is Alex from Paytex. So Alex, nice to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me here, Karina. I'm with Paytex of Canada. We are an industry association that represents fintechs in payments. We've been advocating for public policy change to promote competition and innovation in the sector.
Very exciting. So I think you are the best person to be with us today to answer a couple of questions. And so to start off, I wanted to kind of put my audience a bit more into the depths of what exactly is payments, what are the new trends, the inefficiencies we're seeing right now. And so I have a couple of questions for you. I know you're going to be perfect for that. So if you're ready, I think we can maybe start by jumping in directly.
Let's go.
Perfect. So my first question for you, Alex, is I wanted to know what first excites you the most about the payments industry?
Right. I think the most exciting thing about payments for me is just all the change that's underway, not only in public policy, but in industry too. In public policy, we have the recent introduction of the Retail Payment Activities Act. That's new federal regulation for payment service providers. We know the government has started a conversation about open banking. That's been kind of just moving along at its own pace. We have broader access to payment systems. That's another thing the government is discussing. And then on the industry side, we have Payment Canada's Modernization initiative, which includes the real-time rail. It's going to be this new payment system that exchanges, clears, and settles payments finally and irrevocably in real time. The payment messages are going to be data rich, so that kind of expands the use cases that can be built on top of this thing. So there's just a lot happening, and I'd say to steal a tired old saying, I think Canada is at a bit of an inflection point. Things have changed, and I think they're going to continue to change faster and faster as we get closer and closer to job done on all these different initiatives.
Exciting. You were mentioning open banking just before. Maybe you want to give a quick insight on what exactly is open banking for maybe people at home who are not very familiar.
Sure. So open banking is two things, at least the way it's been deployed around the world. One, it puts control of the sharing of financial transaction data in the customer's hands. So if you're a customer of a bank and you want to share your transaction data with a fintech, a third-party fintech, an open banking framework would let you do that easily and securely. Right now that happens, but it happens via an unsafe method called screen scraping, which puts your data at risk and causes a headache for everyone involved. The other thing that open banking is in other jurisdictions is putting payments also in the customer's control. So if you wanted to, in addition to share your data with your bank, with a third-party fintech, you wanted to allow that fintech to initiate a payment on your behalf, an open banking framework would let you do that too. So it's all really about putting control back in the customer's hand.
Great. And so that's a very good explanation of what open banking is. Thank you. Can we talk about maybe in the Canadian scenery? Because Canada has been very slow. So as you were mentioning with those regulations, do you think that's delaying maybe innovations in terms of payments? Does it have an impact?
I think it certainly does, and I'd say it's not just open banking. There are a lot of different regulatory initiatives that are underway. Modern payments regulation, access to payment systems, and open banking. If you look at the Bank Act, which is federal legislation that regulates banks, it also constrains banks in the ways in which they can partner with fintechs and acquire fintechs. All of these things together, I think, have definitely slowed down innovation. I mean, every now and again, we see a story about how a promising international player has left the Canadian market, or we hear a story about how a Canadian player is starting to look into other jurisdictions for more opportunity. I don't think we can chalk it up to any one particular initiative and the pace at which it's moving. I think it's really the lack of a sort of more coherent, comprehensive strategy at the government level about whether it wants fintech innovation or whether it doesn't. I think right now we've kind of had this, half-hearted attempt at promoting innovation in fintech, whereas in jurisdictions like the UK, it has been and is becoming increasingly a strategic national priority. I think the lack of that in Canada is actually what's slowing down innovation in this sector.
That's an interesting perspective, and it's sad to know that we can be leaders in this sector, and because of a slow uptake on such an important matter, we're kind of falling behind. Talking about things that might have had impacted innovation in either positive or negative way. So right now we're in the COVID crisis. We've seen the COVID crisis kind of having an impact on many sectors. Can you tell us a bit more how COVID maybe accelerated or maybe had an impact on the trend of payment in the payment sector? Sorry.
Sure. So the big one for me is the way in which COVID expedited the trend toward digital payments and online payments in particular. If you open the newspapers in any given month over the past several, you would have noticed small businesses, large businesses complaining about credit card acceptance fees, for example. This is happening because the way these companies price their transactions, an e-commerce transaction is a lot more costly to accept than a transaction in store. And so this shift, this compelling of people to shop online and not in store, has made the cost of accepting payments higher for businesses. On the flip side, it's also been good because cash is obviously inefficient, and you can't pay for something online with cash. So, you give a bit and you take, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So there's some good and some bad. That's interesting to see. Talking about maybe the bad points. I mean, when we're talking about payments, there's a lot of major pain points and there's a lot of inefficiencies that we can observe. Can you maybe walk us through some of the major ones and what's really an issue right now with this sector?
Sure. I think the two big pain points, maybe three that I always hear, is that payments are too slow, payments are too expensive, and there's not enough data following the payment. This is the case in Canada, I think, for a number of reasons. One is that we just have fairly outdated payments infrastructure. I think Payments Canada's Modernization initiative is great. The systems that are being replaced are really old. They weren't really built to accommodate the needs of people making payments today and people accepting payments today. So I think the outdated architecture is one of the things that's causing the inefficiency. The other thing that's causing the inefficiency is the outdated approach to regulation. Right now in payments, only banks have access to national payment systems. If you're a fintech, if you're a paytech, if you're a technology company that holds and moves money, you can't access national payment systems. You have to go through a bank. And when you have to go through a bank, you're adding another intermediary into the mix, which adds cost and which adds time. Until legislation changes to give these technology companies access to payment systems, I think these inefficiencies are going to remain. The lack of competition and so innovation will follow from competition, but we have a lack of competition in this sector because there are legislatively established barriers to entry, and that's what needs to go.
That's very interesting. What do you think? What do we think we need for these regulations to change? What's lacking? What's making it so hard to move forward?
So I think what other jurisdictions have had that Canada doesn't quite have is leadership on these files at the more senior levels of government. In Australia, you had Scott Morrison, who is now the Prime Minister. As I said before, in the UK, fintech is a strategic national priority. Over here, we have plenty of folks who care about this. We have plenty of folks in government who get the issues, who want to fix them, who are working quite hard to fix them. But I think these things often come second or third or fourth or fifth to other government priorities. And part of that is just that I don't think, as advocates of this sector, and not just Paytex of Canada, but sort of all of us collectively, I think we still have work to do to sort of demonstrate why this stuff is important, not just to the individual fintech businesses, but to Canadians, the Canadians they serve, and the businesses they serve. Until you make what you're doing about Canadians, about voters, you're not going to get the political attention.
So you were mentioning earlier on that payments go through a lot with banks. So we're talking here about centralized finance. But let's talk about decentralized finance, because a lot of people at home have heard about it, hear about blockchain, hear about cryptocurrencies, and are curious to know when is this coming? When is this going to become a reality? So maybe can you tell me a bit more about decentralized financial systems, what they are, and how they might come into our payment system?
Right. So right now, if you look at payments, it's incredibly centralized. There are clearing houses, there are bank associations. Everything has to go through them. There's a high degree of intermediation. With all of these changes underway, by allowing people to circumvent banks, by allowing people to create their own decentralized ledgers, we're disintermediating payments and finance. So when you think about distributed ledger technology, that's an example of decentralized finance. So when will it come? When will it become mainstream? To some extent, it already is, but perhaps more as like an investment asset. When will it become mainstream as like a form of payment or something? It's hard to say. There's this book called Super Forecasting. It's written by this guy named Philip Tetlock. He's an academic. I read enough about forecasting to know that I am not good at it, but here's what my gut says. I think to regulators, the idea of disintermediation in payments in finance is kind of repulsive. It's something scary. For that reason, I don't think we'll see it anytime soon. I mean, look at what the central banks are doing now around the world in response to the threat of stablecoins, the threat of sort of challenging their monetary sovereignty. They're exploring issuing their own central bank digital currencies. I think regulators are always going to find a way to make sure that they have a role to play in finance and in payments. And I think they're always going to make sure that banks do too, because banks are, at the end of the day, pretty essential to financial stability in this country. The central bank relies heavily on them to perform a number of functions. For that reason, I don't think it's happening anytime soon. And if it does, it won't happen without a fight.
Interesting perspective. I know it's super difficult to predict. We don't know if it's going to happen, of course, but love your take on it, and looking forward to see what's going to happen for real.
For sure.
So my next question maybe would be, do you think that innovations are going to be more led by fintechs or corporations? And also, like, I'd be curious to know, and do you think this trend, whatever, if it's corporations or fintechs, would it be the same like worldwide in every different country would have their same type of innovation?
Yeah. So Though I think a lot has to change on the public policy side. You're right. At the end of the day, we're going to see this innovation coming from the market, right? The government has to sort of set the parameters, and then the market within those parameters is going to innovate. As to whether it's going to come more from fintechs or corporations, it's hard to say. I don't like the predicting game, but here's how I think about it. You know the old saying, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. The same goes for innovation. So when I think about who's most likely to innovate in the payment space, I think it's going to be those who are closest to and who most intimately feel the dysfunction of the current payment system. It could very well be a giant retailer like Walmart or Loblaw that has to deal with this stuff all the time, that knows what it costs to process a payment. I think it's plausible for one of them to spin off a fintech, and then when they can access payment systems, plug in and offer their own, say, QR code-based payment to process their own in-house transactions. Is that the only way it can happen? No. I mean, we see the wild success of, say, Stripe. There are entrepreneurs out there who are totally plugged in, who aren't necessarily at a Walmart or a giant retailer or the like, who can still see that there's a huge opportunity here. There are billions and billions of dollars on the table if only you can solve these problems for corporations in a sensible way. So who's it going to come from the most? I don't know. I think time will tell. And I don't think we'll get any clues until we open access to those payment systems.
Interesting. Well, I'm looking forward to know also who, like, if fintechs do lead the world, like you were mentioning, Stripe is a perfect example. I mean, I'm looking forward to see also more and more people jump into the payment sector. And it kind of brings me to my next question. And I want to, I mean, I think and most people at home do know also that we have the Formaton coming up, which is our open innovation competition. And you were mentioning Payments Canada earlier, are actually one of the companies pushing a challenge this year for the payments company. And so we're hoping that a lot of people at home are interested by this excited space and will want to maybe start their own fintech company in the payment sector. So I know that you work a lot with many entrepreneurs. You have this varied background. Do you have any tips for aspiring founders at home who maybe want to venture into the payments innovation landscape? What's your tips and tricks?
So there are many things you need to do. I think one of them is not to neglect your regulatory strategy. Right now in Canada, as I said, we're at a bit of an inflection point. There's a lot of regulatory change coming that will make or break whatever business model you have in mind. So wrapping your head around all that at the outset is important. Even if you think you're going to be unaffected at the beginning, it's still important to have that regulatory strategy, because as you grow, as you scale, as you widen your scope, as you start getting into different verticals, you are going to start hitting regulatory walls, and those walls are going to prevent you from growing further. So I can't stress enough that in this landscape with this rapidly changing regulation, it's going to be very important to wrap your mind around all the change and how it's going to affect you. Like I talk to so many different, not just payment technology companies, but financial technology companies, and I can only imagine the struggle they're going through, especially the ones that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and are having that sort of existential question come up: what are we going to be in 5 years? Once you exhaust what you can in the box that you can operate in today, given how the regulatory environment is, it becomes very hard to answer the question, what comes next? And for a lot of institutions, the question really is, do we just keep doing what we're doing, not change anything, the status quo? Or if we want to get bigger and offer a wider array of products, do we become a bank? The fact that we have fintechs asking themselves, do I become a bank? That to me suggests our regulatory infrastructure as a whole is a failure, right? Because becoming a bank is no easy feat. Becoming a bank, though I'm not an expert on the Bank Act, I'm pretty sure would constrain you in the kinds of offerings that you'd want to have as a fintech, because as a fintech, you're not a bank. You don't have to report to OSFI. But once you become that, there's even more burden and compliance that probably prohibits you from offering the kind of products you want to offer. So I feel like you have a lot of fintechs in this space who feel like they don't have a home. And that really is the problem. And it's not an easy fix. It's not as easy as just standing up an open banking framework. It's not as easy as just opening access to the payment systems. It's not as easy as just introducing modern payments regulation. I really think you need a sort of broad, purposeful, coherent strategy that looks across all these different issues and proposes a more comprehensive solution, because that's what they're doing in other jurisdictions. And if we want to stay competitive, we need to do the same.
Very good tips and tricks there, Alex. Well, that's pretty much all the time we had for our panel section. But Alex, thank you so much for being here. I think that was a lot of great insight and a very good overview of the payment sector. Well, I hope that we'll have the chance of having you again. And thank you again for being here today.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me.
So for this next part, we have the chance of having Antoine from Payments Canada, who will tell us a bit more about one of our challenges at our upcoming Formaton. So Antoine, hello. Nice to have you on.
Thank you. Nice to be here, and thanks for the invitation.
My pleasure. So Antoine, without further ado, I'll let you the whole screen, and I'll let you do your thing and explain a bit more what this challenge that's coming up is all about.
Sounds good. Thank you. So hi, everyone. My name is Antoine Dakash. I'm the manager of one of the teams at Payments Canada, the API Network and Directory Services team. Today, I'll be presenting what we do at Payments Canada, as well as some of the futuristic payment systems that are coming down the pike, as well as getting into the Formathon challenge and how it all ties in together to benefit the payment ecosystem. So on the agenda today, I'll be going over what Payments Canada is, who we are as an entity, how the payments in Canada today work and how they will in the future, the real-time Rails, which is one of the products that's going to enable that, our current API and developer portal that we have available. I'll be discussing the Formathon challenge as well as market challenges that we have today in the marketplace, the ultimate goal of the hackathon, what we're trying to achieve, and the conclusion to wrap it all up. So Payments Canada, who we are. We are a public purpose, non-for-profit organization that's fully funded by our members that participate in our systems. The Canadian economy depends on the exchange of money, billions of dollars every day. We at Payments Canada ensure that these transactions in Canada are carried out safely and securely. We essentially underpin the financial system and economy by owning and operating the payment systems that settle and clear the payments, as well as rules and bylaws and standard governing payments. Our retail system is where the vast majority of day-to-day Canadian commerce is cleared by our financial institutions. And to give you an example of how much money we move, or moves through our systems rather, in 2019, we cleared and settled a total of 8.3 billion transactions, totaling $55 trillion, which averages to $218 billion each business day. So quite a lot of money. And the way we look at it is the less that Canadians notice the payments, the better, because that means we're doing our job, the payments are safe and secure. And we collaborate with stakeholders across the payment ecosystems to create necessary balance of rules with standards and efficient infrastructure to achieve optimized, low-friction value flow. So how does the payments currently work within Canada, within our landscape? So person A would get a payment, let's say a check, they would go to their bank, they would deposit it. The action of it getting deposited could take several hours to a day before it reaches the settlement provider and gets debited from the other bank. There's no fast, easy way to do that today. It has to go through the clearing and settling systems, and that could take a day to 2 days for it all to all be cleared. I think the banks quote something like 3 days for a major, even a certified check, for it to be actually cleared and deposited in your account. Where we want to go is with the real-time payments rail is aiming to provide a real-time payment system that's available 24/7, 365 to support the modern digital economy. So now if you go to the bank to deposit a certified check, it would happen in real time within, I believe, 60 seconds. The money would be pulled out of, in this case, Bank B's customer's bank account and deposited into yours. This is where the real-time rail payment system comes in. So what is the real-time rail? So it's a new payment system we're expecting to go live in 2022 with the ability to reach more deposit accounts in Canada and will support 24/7, 365 payments that are irrevocable, final, and cannot be undone. It will act as a platform for innovation by allowing new products and services that give Canadians new ways to pay and transfer money. It'll be based on ISO 20022 messaging standards to support data-rich payments. So why are we doing this real-time rail payment system? It's to deliver funds in less than 60 seconds that, again, are irrevocable and providing real-time capabilities. It's essentially done to keep Canada at a pace and meet the needs of Canadians as identified by the Payment Canada's public consultation for the future of payments in Canada. So what are the benefits of the system? So as mentioned, it will enable fast, convenient payments and act as a platform for innovation, allowing ecosystem players such as financial institutions and payment service providers to be able to leverage the RTR to deliver faster, data-rich payments and new services to businesses and individuals. An example of this is the request to pay that is built into the RTR. So this feature is set to go live after the RTR launch and will be a key driver for innovation to introduce a new flexible way to manage and settle bill payments between businesses and individuals. So, having said all that, let me preface the Formathon challenge. So, using APIs that are available on Payments Canada's developer portal, develop a solution to help solve real-world payment inefficiencies for Canadians and businesses alike. Now, I'll be discussing a little bit more about the payment inefficiencies right now. So, what are some payment inefficiencies? So, in the case of a person to business, there's limited ways to be able to send money to one another. We either have to use physical cash, a personal check, which we know takes 2 to 3 days to clear, an e-transfer, which has a pretty tight limit, as well as a fee associated with it. And they each have their own inefficiencies and drawbacks. With the push of open banking and standards and interoperability capabilities of a new real-world platform, this allows new solutions to be innovated and developed. In this challenge, you would be looking at creating overlay services that enable person-to-person transactions to take advantage of open banking through the payments rail. So I'll give you an example where this kind of innovation could take place. Person to person, an easy way to do that would be to build some sort of tool that uses a QR code. So say myself and a friend go out to lunch and they forget their wallet, and I can do a request to pay using a QR code where they could pay me right away from their phone versus doing an interactive transfer. This could be one step quicker with potentially less associated fees. Another payment type would be the person to business. So this is where you have things like recurring payments, car finances, mortgage payments, bill rentals, hot water, etc. Currently, there's 2 ways to tackle this. It's pre-authorized debits, which are known as PADs, which Payments Canada wrote the rule for. The problem with those is they don't allow individual payment approval process or easy chains of payers. For example, if my car bill comes out and I've given them a pad and I want to change my bank information, it's so much more difficult for me to have to go contact each individual person that has, my car payments, my mortgage, etc., to get them updated. So this is a payment like this could shift the focus of that to be able to manage your own pads independently, as well as give the ability to approve, modify, easier make payments to those kinds of things. The other way would be, online banking, which requires vendor registration. So the vendor has to be signed up to be a payee on the your banking portal to be able to send direct payments. So those are really your two options for person to business communication. And so we're looking to be able to leverage the payments rail to be able to take care of that. The other would be the business to business payments. This is a big pain point in the Canadian economy because these payments can take several days to be processed and settled. This can ultimately lead business to have financial loss if they're waiting on a payment from another business and it's not being as smooth or as fast as it could be. With the real-time rail, things can more easily be reconciled against outstanding invoices through remittance data. And one of the ways we can innovate here is to build a system that takes advantage of the RTR, the real-time rails APIs, to be able to notify settled invoices a lot easier. And then in the case of a business to person transaction, another pain point is, let's say, for example, the case of the team that's winning the formathon to be able to receive payment. Right now, the current mechanism, the best mechanism we have is to send an e-transfer, but that has, a default limit, I think, of $2,000. So in the case of a $5,000 transaction, you either have to do multiple transactions spread out throughout the day, or a business check, which again takes 3 days to clear. So this is another area we can innovate. Again, these are just high-level areas, and some of the challenges faced today, these are the obvious ones, and I wanted to outline it to kind of get people thinking about other ways that payments can be innovated to help solve these efficiencies. So what are we providing the members or the participants to be able to solve these challenges? So we have a few products that are available. The first one is the financial institution file. This one contains, houses, and allows, through APIs, allows you to retrieve and validate institution, transit, and branch account information. Another product is the CCIN, the corporate creditor identification number. That application or set of APIs houses payee aliases and account information. The third category of APIs we're providing is the bank account validation or bank account management and validation APIs. This is loosely tied to open banking, where you have the ability to do open banking style actions against your account. So, the ability to open a bank account with a certain deposit amount. This could be taken care of by an overlay service that has a relationship with a certain financial institution. They could act on that behalf. The ability to edit bank account details, the ability to check your balance, validate an account. This is a big deal right now in the Canadian payment space, where there's no way for account validation to happen between banks. The ability to retrieve your account transactions. You could take that data and build a chart to identify certain spending patterns of individuals. And interest rates per account type that are available. And again, this could be used to potentially develop applications that can help Canadians better save, because not all banks are going to give the same interest rates for a savings account, for example, or even, taking a step further, mortgage rates and that sort of thing, right? So these are all things that kind of can work together to be able to facilitate the financial demands of Canadians. And then the last piece we're providing is the payments rail API. And that's where payment initiation and request to pay will live. So obviously, as I've discussed those previously, pretty evident what those do. So these APIs are going to be available at our developer portal. The developer portal is accessible through hackathon.payments.ca. And as outlined, the API catalog will be those API products that I've mentioned on the previous slide. There's a comprehensive getting started video section with YouTube tutorial videos. We do have code samples available in a variety of languages: Angular, Java, Kotlin, Node. We have Postman collections, and Postman essentially is a tool to make API calls fairly easily. And then we have the Swagger and OAS specifications available should someone want to download them, both listed on the portal and downloadable as a file. So, said a lot. What is the ultimate goal that we're trying to achieve through this formathon? The big thing is we want to foster innovation within the industry and identify new opportunities with the available technology. So we're putting all this technology out. Let's see how members can take this technology and innovate and provide new solutions to common problems that we face. We want to improve business automations and the predictability of cash flow, as well as facilitate the cross-border payments. So in conclusion, I want to thank everyone for their time and thank you, FinTech Cadence, for having me. I would recommend everyone join the hackathon to help shape the future of payments. More information about the real-time rail is available at payments.ca. Please feel free to check it out and get more information about Payments Canada. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Antoine. That's very helpful and interesting, and we're all looking forward for this specific challenge. So I think that will help a lot of the participants who are already registered or will register to the formaton. And also, I would like to remind everyone at home that if you haven't registered to formaton, there's still time to register. I mean, it's coming up, but you still have time. So feel free to click on the link below and go check it out. And well, yeah, that is concluding our 6th university series on payments. So thank you all and have a good day or night or wherever you are in the world.